Hello, Brian Weeks here again with another MMCD contract consideration. This video clip will cover the topic of the limitations of the contract administrator's authority. This is a companion video to the one titled The Roles of the CA and the one titled The Inspector's Duties. First, we need to consider why the MMCD Association thought it appropriate to limit the CA's authority in the first place. You might think that since it's the owner's contract, the owner's representative should have all authority necessary to manage the project. Well, there are two problems with this approach. First, the owner sold the problems of managing the construction to the contractor by awarding the tender. Thus, the management of the project is totally the contractor's responsibility. It is the administration of the project to see that the owner's goals are met that is the responsibility of the CA. Second, past history has proven that giving the CA ultimate authority to make decisions often leads to major disputes which have to be resolved in court. The MMCD approach is to give the CA very extensive powers in many areas, but to absolutely limit those areas. Visualize a deep water well with a ladder up the side. Now visualize the CA near the top of that ladder. The well represents the boundaries of the CA's authority as determined by the owner when the construction contract was drafted. Within that well, the CA has a lot of flexibility to move up and down, in other words, to set conditions and requirements. However, the CA must not move outside the well, as that is contrary to the contract language and thus the express intent of the owner. What happens when the CA makes a decision contrary to the language of the contract? A couple of potential problems are created. First, the CA may have attracted liability or responsibility back to the owner, which the owner was expecting to have paid the contractor to handle. Second, the CA may just have opened the door to a claim or back charge on the basis that I was just doing what you told me to. Let me give you a real-life example. Project is falling behind schedule, so the CA says to the contractor, "You're behind schedule. I think you should get another pipe crew working on segment 2 right away." The contractor mobilizes a second crew, but their efficiency is low since there are not enough materials available for both crews. Later, the contractor submits a claim for inefficiency on the basis that he would not have activated a second crew, but he was told to do so by the CA. Obviously, the CA stepped beyond his authority when he started directing how the job was to be run. Job management and schedule adherence are the responsibility of the contractor alone. Let's look at some of the specific contract language which limits the scope and authority of the CA. General Condition 3.2.1 is very explicit. It could not be clearer when it says, quote, "The contract administrator shall have the authority to act on behalf of the owner only to the extent expressly provided in the contract documents," close quote. It's critical to the owner and the CA that a CA not make a decision or issue an instruction unless, if challenged, the CA can point to a specific clause in one of the contract documents which provides the authority to do so. Here's a quick example. GC 4.13.3 says, "If in the opinion of the contract administrator it's not expedient to correct such defective work or work not performed in accordance with the contract documents, then the contract administrator may direct that such work be left, and the owner may deduct from the monies otherwise due to the contractor the difference in value to the owner, considering the owner's intended use of the work, between the work as performed and that called for by the contract documents. The amount of such deduction will be determined in the first instance by the contract administrator." In our example, the contractor mislocated a fire hydrant along the water line by a distance of 10 meters. All parties involved, including the fire department, agree that this has no significant effect. The contractor wants the error overlooked. The owner is willing, but wants a $1,000 credit for the true extra cost of evaluating the situation. The CA must make the initial decision. On first glance, the owner's position seems reasonable. The owner incurred extra costs as a result of the contractor's mistake. However, as always, the CA must look at the specific language from which he or she develops authority to make a judgment. In this case, the specific language says, considering the owner's intended use of the work. Costs of evaluating the situation, real or not, are not covered by this language, so the CA must not take the credit that the owner requests. To make it even more clear that the CA is not responsible for running the project, look at GC 3.4.8. Quote, the contract administrator's authority, as set out in the contract documents, will not relieve the contractor of the responsibility for the work and safety as provided by GC 4.1 and 4.2. And the contract administrator shall not be responsible for or have control of or charge of the matters set out in the above-mentioned GCs. The contract administrator will not be responsible for or have control or charge over the acts or omissions of the contractor, subcontractors, or their agents, employees, or other persons performing any of the work. End quote. These are the responsibilities that the owner has sold to the contractor and does not want them back. So then, just what can the CA do? Well, within the bounds I just discussed, the CA has a tremendous scope of authority. There are at least 36 specific responsibilities set out in the general conditions, far too many to list in this short video. As I discuss in a separate contract consideration video, some of these responsibilities can be delegated to inspectors, but many cannot be. Many of the specific duties can be found in GC3. However, additional duties are spread throughout the general conditions and the other documents. The easiest way to find all of these duties is to obtain a copy of the electronic version of the MMCD and do a word search for Contract Administrator. Keep in mind, however, that while the CA can make extensive changes to the work and the contract, some of those changes will create a legitimate entitlement on the part of the contractor for reimbursement and/or extra time. So, to summarize, the role of the CA is intentionally limited to protect both the CA and the owner. The CA must keep in mind that he or she must always know which part of the contract authorizes the CA to make a certain decision or issue a particular instruction. Within the scope of the language in the contract, the CA has massive authority to alter the work and even the contract. However, if those alterations impact the contractor in a way that could not have been anticipated at the time of tendering, the contractor will be entitled to additional revenue and/or time as a result. I hope this has helped clarify this contract consideration. Please check our website for further assistance and to see what other topics are presented in this series. Thanks for watching.